Hey, guys. What do you think? Did Cooper successfully parachute out of the airplane? Let me know your thoughts down below. And also, please consider liking this video. It really helps me out. Thanks. On the evening of November 24th, 1971, the night before Thanksgiving, a man boarded a Northwest Orient Airlines flight from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. He was dressed neatly in a dark business suit, a black tie, and polished shoes. Carrying only a briefcase, he looked like any other businessman traveling for the holidays. On his ticket, the name read simply, Dan Cooper. Once seated in the back of the Boeing 727, he ordered a bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, something passengers could do back then, and appeared calm, almost unremarkable. But what happened next would turn him into one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. As the plane climbed into the air, Cooper discreetly handed a folded note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. She thought it was just a man slipping her his phone number, and she tucked it away without reading. But Cooper leaned closer and whispered, "Miss, you'd better open that note. I have a bomb." The note explained his demands: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting when the plane landed in Seattle. If his requests weren't met, he said he would detonate the bomb inside his briefcase. When Florence nervously sat beside him, Cooper opened the case just enough for her to glimpse red sticks wired to a battery. It was convincing enough. She walked quickly to the cockpit and informed the pilots. What followed was a carefully controlled negotiation between the FBI, airline officials, and the mysterious hijacker. For the next several hours, passengers had no idea of the danger they were in. Cooper even reassured the flight attendants, saying, "Everything will be fine. I don't want to hurt anyone." When the plane finally landed in Seattle, his demands were met. The money was delivered in a canvas bag, the parachutes were brought on board, and fuel was pumped into the jet. In exchange, Cooper released all the passengers. Not one person was harmed, but he kept several crew members and ordered the pilots to take off once again. His instructions were precise: fly toward Mexico City, maintain an altitude of 10,000 feet, keep the speed below 200 knots, and, most unusual of all, fly with the rear staircase lowered. The pilots protested that such a request was dangerous, but Cooper was calm and unshakable. He seemed to know exactly what he was talking about, almost as if he had military or aviation training. At approximately 8:13 p.m., over the dense forests of Washington state, the crew felt a sudden shift in the plane's weight. The warning light indicated the rear stairs had been deployed. D.B. Cooper had strapped on one of the parachutes, tied the bag of money to himself, and leapt into the stormy night. The pilots landed the plane safely, but when FBI agents swarmed the jet, they found nothing. Cooper was gone. What followed became one of the largest manhunts in FBI history. Thousands of officers, soldiers, and volunteers scoured the rugged forests, mountains, and rivers below the flight path. But there was no trace of Cooper, not the parachute, not his body, not even the money. Years passed. In 1980, a young boy camping along the Columbia River discovered several decayed bundles of $20 bills buried in the sand. The serial numbers matched the ransom money, but the rest of the fortune, and Cooper himself, had vanished. Over the decades, the mystery only deepened. Was Cooper a skilled paratrooper who survived the jump and lived quietly under a new identity? Or was he a desperate man whose parachute failed in the storm, his body lost forever in the wilderness? Theories flourished. Some claimed he was an ex-military paratrooper. Others believed he might have been a Boeing employee who knew the 727's rear staircase design. A few even argued he was Canadian, inspired by a French comic book character named Dan Cooper, which might explain the alias. Hundreds of suspects were investigated. Some men even confessed on their deathbeds, but none could be proven to be the real hijacker. The truth was always just out of reach. Finally, in 2016, after 45 years of searching, the FBI announced they were officially closing the case. D.B. Cooper had outlived the investigation. To this day, the identity and fate of D.B. Cooper remain unsolved. He left behind no fingerprints, no conclusive DNA, and only one enduring legend: a man who hijacked a plane, stole $200,000, and disappeared into the night sky, never to be seen again. And so, the question lingers: was D.B. Cooper a genius who pulled off the only unsolved hijacking in American history? Or was he just a man swallowed by the storm, remembered only because he dared to try? Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: the legend of D.B. Cooper will never die. Now, where was he going? What was the motive? There are countless questions surrounding this strange event. We may never get the answers we seek, but there's a lot we do know about the circumstances surrounding this case. For starters, who was Dan Cooper? Well, we don't know his real name. We believe that he picked up the name Dan Cooper from a newspaper ad for a Seattle restaurant called Cooper S. Many also believe that his real name was actually Richard McCoy, an ex-military paratrooper. Several people who worked with McCoy at various construction sites reported that he disappeared around the time of the hijacking. Furthermore, McCoy's brother, Bruce, served in Vietnam as a medic and had access to military-grade explosives, perhaps how Cooper acquired his. However, it should be noted that these are only theories. The FBI was unable to connect McCoy to the crime scene, and he died in 1992 believing he would be cleared after his death. So why does it matter if the authorities cannot find out who he was? Well, his identity may hold clues to his intentions. Why did he hijack the aircraft? Why did he release the passengers? And what ultimately happened to him? Perhaps the only way to find out is through more extensive genetic genealogy, like the process used in the Golden State Killer case. In fact, some researchers believe that a relative of Cooper submitted his DNA to an ancestry website, making it possible to link him to the crime. However, the FBI has thus far refused to use this method, leaving us with little more than speculation. Let's talk about another interesting question. Where was he going? The route that Cooper requested took him over Mexico City, but he likely wasn't headed there. Instead, it was probably a ruse designed to confuse authorities. His ultimate destination was most likely Hawaii. This theory is supported by two main pieces of evidence. First, the FBI believes that he likely had experience in the military or in aviation. Therefore, he wouldn't have asked the pilots to keep the altitude low. Had he wanted to fly over Mexico City, he would have asked them to climb higher. Second, Cooper had a suitcase with him containing clothes suitable for a tropical climate. So it seems as though Cooper's true intentions were to fly over Mexico City and then make his way to Hawaii. However, his plans were thwarted when the plane lost altitude. As it descended, Cooper panicked and deployed the rear staircase early, causing him to lose the precious cargo, both the money and the parachutes. This may explain why he didn't survive. But what if he did? What if the man who jumped out of the plane made it to the ground safely? Like many others, I believe he did. He had extensive knowledge of airplanes and the weather, and he likely knew that the storm would prevent authorities from locating his body. He chose to abandon ship early, giving him the best chance at survival. And although the FBI believes that he would have had to deploy his parachute at an extremely low altitude, I disagree. Parachutes are designed to function even from very low heights. With his military training, Cooper would have had no problem maneuvering the chute through the trees, allowing him to land safely. After disposing of the money, he would have fled into the forest, shedding his heavy clothing and blending into the crowd. Given his knowledge of the area, he would have had no trouble living off the grid. But what happened to him? Well, that's anyone's guess. Cooper was a veteran of some sort. He knew how to stay hidden and evade capture. It's entirely possible that he lived out the remainder of his life under a false identity. In conclusion, while we may never know what truly happened to D.B. Cooper, we can still appreciate the mystery that surrounds his case. He remains one of the most intriguing characters in criminal history. Whether he was a highly trained operative or a desperate father looking to provide for his family, one thing is certain: his actions that day continue to captivate us today. The case serves as a reminder that sometimes the truth really is stranger than fiction. What do you think happened to D.B. Cooper? Do you think he survived the jump, or was he lost forever in the wilderness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching.